When He Jin was killed by Zhang Rang and the other eunuchs, Yuan Shao had been waiting outside the palace gate for ages. When he realized there was no movement inside, he shouted, "Will the general please come out to his carriage?" In response, Zhang Rang and his cohorts actually threw He Jin's head directly out from the top of the wall, yelling, "He Jin was plotting rebellion and has been executed by us. Anyone else not involved will be pardoned." As soon as these words were spoken, Yuan Shao exploded with rage, roaring, "The eunuchs have murdered a high minister of the court. Everyone, charge and kill these damn dogs." His deputy commander, Wu Kuang, immediately set fires outside the palace gate. And Yuan Shu also led troops storming into the imperial palace. Any eunuch they saw, regardless of age, was cut down. Yuan Shao and Cao Tao also broke through the gates, killing enemies everywhere. Several well-known eunuchs like Zhao Zhong, Chen Kuang, Xia Yun, and Guo Sheng were cornered in front of Quihua Tower and directly chopped in to meet pace. The scene was incredibly bloody. The entire imperial palace was engulfed in flames and descended into utter chaos. Zhang Rang, Duan Gi, and others, seeing the situation was dire, quickly abducted the Empress Dowager, the young Emperor Liu Bian, and the Prince of Shenliu Liu Zi, and fled through a back gate to the North Palace. At this moment, a familiar face appeared. It was Liu Zi, Liu Bei's respected former teacher. He hadn't left the capital yet. Hearing there was trouble in the palace, he immediately donned his armor, led his soldiers, and stood guard at a pavilion. He happened to see Duan Gi escorting the Empress Dowager past and shouted, "You treacherous villain, how dare you abduct Her Majesty?" Duan Gi was so frightened he turned and fled. The Empress Dowager took the chance during the chaos to jump out of a window and was fortunately caught by Liu Zi, thus escaping danger. Wu Kuang also rushed into the palace and encountered He Jin's younger brother, He Miao. Furious, he shouted on the spot, "Your brother was killed by the eunuchs, yet you didn't help. You're clearly one of them." Hearing this, the crowd surged forward and attacked He Miao, hacking him into meat paste as well. Later, Yuan Shao even ordered his men to split up and kill the families of the 10 attendants. So many beardless men were mistakenly killed in the process that blood flowed like rivers. It was truly a palace massacre. Cao Tao, while directing firefighting efforts, requested the Empress Dowager to temporarily take charge of government affairs. At the same time, he dispatched troops to pursue Zhang Rang and the others, with orders to find the young emperor at all costs. Meanwhile, Zhang Rang and Duan Gi, escorting the emperor and his brother, fled the palace city under the cover of a night sky filled with smoke and flames. They reached the vicinity of Baimeng Mountain around the second watch past AM when suddenly they heard the sounds of shouting and soldiers pursuing them from behind. Leading the chase was a southern district official named Min Gong, yelling, "Villains, don't run." Zhang Rang knew he was finished and, in desperation, jumped into a river and drowned himself. The remaining young emperor and the Prince of Shenliu didn't dare make a sound and just lay flat in the dense grass by the riverbank. Not daring to move, they hid like this for several hours, their stomachs rumbling with hunger. They were cold and terrified. The two brothers hugged each other and wept, but could only cry softly. The Prince of Shenliu whispered, "We can't stay here long. We need to find a way to safety quickly." So the two of them tied their clothes together and carefully climbed up the riverbank. But the ground was covered in thorns, and it was so dark they couldn't see their hands in front of their faces. They had no idea where the path was. Just then, a swarm of fireflies suddenly appeared in the sky, emitting a faint glow in the darkness, and they kept flying back and forth in front of the young emperor. The Prince of Shenliu said, "This is heaven helping us." The two of them then followed the fireflies, and indeed, they gradually saw a small path. By the fifth watch early morning, they were too exhausted to walk any further and collapsed to rest beside a haystack. Nearby, there happened to be a farmhouse. The owner of the farmhouse had a dream that night. He dreamt that 2 red suns fell behind his house. He was so frightened he woke up in the middle of the night, threw on some clothes, and went out to see. He then discovered a red glow on the haystack. When he looked closer, he saw 2 young men lying there and asked, "Whose children are you?" The emperor didn't dare to speak. The Prince of Shenliu pointed at Liu Bian and said, "This is the current emperor. I am his younger brother. We escaped during the eunuch rebellion." When the farmer heard this, he was so terrified he immediately knelt. "I am Kui Yi, the younger brother of the former minister over the masses, Kui Lai. I came here to live in seclusion because I couldn't stand the eunuch's misrule." He quickly helped the two brothers into his house, prepared food, and offered them warm hospitality. As the story goes, the loyal minister Min Gong caught up with that eunuch Duan Gi, grabbed him, and demanded, "Where is His Majesty? Where is he?" Duan Gi tried to play dumb. "Oh dear, we got separated along the way. I don't know where he ran off to." Min Gong, furious, drew his sword on the spot, dispatched Duan Gi, and even hung his head on his horse's neck as a warning. Then he immediately sent his men to search in different directions for the emperor. While he himself rode along the road looking. As luck would have it, he rode to a village called Kuiyijung. The village head, Kuiyi, upon seeing a man on horseback with a severed head hanging from it, was completely terrified and asked him what was going on. Min Gong recounted everything, the emperor's disappearance and how he had killed Duan Gi. When Kuiyi heard this, he immediately exclaimed, "The emperor is at my house. At my house." He then led Min Gong to see the emperor. When ruler and minister met, they wept, snot and tears streaming down their faces, like long-lost relatives. Min Gong said, "The country cannot be without an emperor for even a day. Please, your majesty, return to the capital quickly." But there was a problem. Kuiyi's place wasn't some grand estate. He only owned one skinny horse. What to do? There was no choice. The skinny horse was for the emperor to ride. While Min Gong and the Prince of Shenliu shared another horse, you can imagine it like only being able to hail a single, beat-up little scooter on Uber, with 3 people having to awkwardly squeeze on. They had barely gone 3 kilometers when they saw a cloud of dust billowing in the distance and banners obscuring the sun. A massive contingent of several hundred cavalrymen was approaching, an incredibly grand and intimidating sight. The emperor and the ministers were all terrified, thinking it was another band of rebels. An officer, the text mentions Yuan Shao, but given his likely location in the capital, this might be a general term for someone taking charge in their small group or a slight narrative inconsistency. Regardless, someone from their party quickly rode out and shouted, "Who goes there?" From the other side, a general in full armor charged out, his voice fierce, "Where is the emperor?" The emperor was too scared to speak. At this moment, the incredibly cool-headed Prince of Shenliu rode forward and loudly asked him, "And who are you?" The man replied, "I am Dongzhuo, inspector of Ziliang." The Prince of Shenliu immediately retorted, "Are you here to protect His Majesty, or to kidnap him?" Dongzhuo quickly said, "I am here to protect him, to protect him." The Prince of Shenliu shot back, "Since you are here to protect the emperor, and the emperor is right here, why haven't you dismounted? How long do you intend to be so disrespectful?" Dongzhuo was stunned by this. Then, incredibly awkwardly, he dismounted and knelt by the roadside. You can imagine him thinking, "This kid has guts, his presence is quite something. Maybe it would be better if he were the emperor instead." In any case, they all returned to the palace together. Once there, the emperor saw his mother Empress Dowager He, and mother and son embraced, weeping in a moving scene. But tragically, the imperial hereditary seal was discovered to be missing. This wasn't just any piece of jade. It symbolized legitimate political power. Losing it meant the regime was unstable, and whoever possessed it would have considerable sway. As for that fellow Dongzhuo, although he paid lip service to protecting the emperor, he actually brought his ironclad troops into the city every day. Swaggering through the main streets like a warlord, the common people were so terrified they didn't dare leave their homes. At that time, a rear army colonel named Bao Xin couldn't stand it anymore. He went to find Yuan Shao and said, "Dongzhuo definitely wants to rebel. We need to get rid of him early on." Yuan Shao hesitated, saying, "The situation has just stabilized. Let's not act rashly for now." Bao Xin then went to Wang Yun but was also turned away. With no other options, he took his own troops and fled to Taishan to wait out the storm. But did Dongzhuo stop? Not at all. He poached all of He Jin's former subordinates, bringing them into his own ranks. Then he summoned his confidant, Li Ru, and said, "I want to depose the current young emperor and install the Prince of Shenliu. What do you think?" Li Ru's reply was even more ruthless than his master's. "Right now, no one in the court can control you. If not now, when? Tomorrow, hold a grand banquet at Wenming Garden. Summon all the high officials, and directly announce the deposition. Whoever dares to object, just chop them down, and that's that." Dongzhuo heard this. Brilliant. Let's do it. The next day, things unfolded exactly as scripted. Dongzhuo hosted a grand banquet, and all the ministers were compelled to attend. Dong Zhuo waited until everyone was seated before slowly dismounting. Walking in with his sword at his side, his presence completely dominating the room. After a few rounds of wine, he suddenly ordered the music and wine to stop and loudly declared, "I have a few words to say, everyone listen carefully." All ears perked up. Dong Zhuo said, "The current emperor is too weak and unfit to lead the country. The Prince of Shenliu is intelligent and has great presence. I intend to depose the young emperor and install the Prince of Shenliu. What do you all think?" The entire hall fell into a stunned silence. No one dared to speak after all, with thousands of his iron-clad cavalry behind him, who would dare say no? Just then, someone slammed their hand on the table smack. Stood up and roared, "Absolutely not. Who do you think you are, daring to spout such nonsense? The current emperor is the late emperor's biological son. He has done nothing wrong. On what grounds would you depose him? Are you trying to rebel?" The whole assembly was shocked. Everyone looked. It was Ding Yuan, the inspector of Jinzhou. Dong Zhuo was instantly enraged and was about to draw his sword to cut the man down. At this critical moment, Li Ru, seeing the situation was about to get out of hand, quickly said, "Today is a place for drinking, not suitable for discussing matters of state. It won't be too late to discuss this at court tomorrow." Others also quickly pulled Ding Yuan, urging him to leave first. Ding Yuan, fuming, mounted his horse and left. However, after this drama, Dong Zhuo's ambition was laid bare under the sun. The matter of deposing the emperor was now like an arrow on the bowstring, ready to be loosed.